Welcome to Disruptarian Radio. I'm your host, Ryan Thompson, the Punk Rock Libertarian. Today we're diving into a topic that's as contentious as it is crucial: why I stand firmly against gender ideology while continuing to defend women's rights. In a world where stating biological truths has somehow become revolutionary, we need to have honest conversations about what's happening around us. The simple reality is that speaking plainly about biology, about what makes women women, has been reframed as controversial, even hateful. But truth matters, and sometimes truth hurts, yet it's still worth fighting for. Today I'm going to share my perspective on why biological reality isn't optional, why standing up for women's rights isn't transphobic, and why honesty is actually the most compassionate position we can take. This won't be comfortable for everyone listening, but comfort has never been my priority. Truth has. So let's get real about what's happening in our culture and why it matters so deeply. We're living through nothing short of a cultural coup, where reality itself is being contested. Language, our primary tool for describing the world, has been weaponized against us. Words like woman and man, which have had clear meanings for millennia, are now being deliberately obscured and redefined. Think about this. Stating that women are adult human females, a definition so obvious it would have seemed redundant just a decade ago, can now get you banned from social platforms, cost you your job, or label you a bigot. How did we reach a point where basic biological facts became controversial? What's remarkable are the public figures who've had the courage to stand firm despite having everything to lose. Take Elon Musk, one of the world's richest men, or J.K. Rowling, perhaps the most successful author of our time. These aren't anonymous internet trolls. They're global icons who could easily stay silent and enjoy their success without controversy. Instead, they've chosen to stand in the firing line of modern cancel culture. Rowling has faced death threats, boycotts, and abandonment by actors whose careers she launched, all for saying women deserve sex-based rights and protections. Musk has seen activists deface his products with swastikas simply for defending biological reality. What's telling isn't just the backlash they've faced, but the complete unwillingness of their critics to engage with their actual arguments. Instead, they're demonized, their words twisted, and their motives questioned. This isn't about fostering understanding. It's about enforcing compliance through intimidation. When pointing out basic biological differences becomes revolutionary, we're no longer in a society that values truth. We're in one that prioritizes comfort over reality, feelings over facts, and conformity over honest discourse. But as inspiring as figures like Musk and Rowling may be, I find myself even more moved by the female athletes who've put everything on the line. These women didn't have billions in the bank or literary empires to cushion their fall. They simply had dreams of fair competition that were suddenly compromised. Riley Gaines, a champion swimmer who tied with Leah Thomas at the NCAA championships, has transformed from athlete to activist overnight. After being forced to surrender her trophy to Thomas and change in the same locker room as a biological male, Gaines made the difficult choice to speak up. She's since testified before Congress, knowing full well the backlash she'd face from the media, universities, and potential sponsors. Then there's Stephanie Turner, a fencer who took a knee during a competition to protest competing against a biological male. That single act of peaceful protest required extraordinary courage. In today's climate, she knew she'd be painted as a bigot rather than recognized for what she truly is: an athlete demanding basic fairness. These women didn't sign up to be culture warriors. They didn't train all their lives to become political figures. They just wanted the same thing women in sports have always wanted: a level playing field where their hard work and talent could be fairly measured against their female peers. When people ask what real courage looks like in 2023, I point to these athletes. They're not merely risking social media harassment, they're risking scholarships, future career opportunities, and their reputations. And for what? For the simple truth that biological differences between males and females are real and relevant in athletic competition. These women represent what true feminism should be about, defending hard-won opportunities for women and girls, not surrendering them at the altar of a new ideology that paradoxically erases the very concept of womanhood. Taking a stand for what you believe is true doesn't come without personal costs. I've lost some good friends over this issue, people I've known for years who simply couldn't accept my position on biological reality. That's painful, but it's the price of staying grounded when others are swept up in ideology. What hurts more deeply is how my own family situation has been affected. My kids have essentially become pawns in a culture war they never signed up for. My ex-wife is now married to a self-described trans man. To be perfectly honest, I struggle with the constantly shifting terminology. Is that a transsexual or a transvestite? The definitions seem to change daily under the pressure of political correctness. What remains clear to me is this: just because someone identifies in a certain way doesn't erase biological reality. And it certainly doesn't mean I should stop advocating for my daughter's right to safe, female-only spaces, or my son's right to understand the fundamental differences between males and females. According to the current narrative in my family dynamic, 4 out of my 5 children now identify as some variation of this new trend. Statistically speaking, this is virtually impossible unless external factors are at play, factors like cultural influence and ideological pressure rather than biological reality. To my children who might hear this someday, please understand that my position doesn't come from a place of hatred. It comes from love and a commitment to honesty. I refuse to embrace what I believe are falsehoods, even when doing so would make my life easier or win me social approval. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is speak truth, even when that truth is difficult to hear. As St. Augustine wisely noted centuries ago, right is right even if no one is doing it. Wrong is wrong even if everyone is doing it. That principle guides me regardless of the personal cost. I need to address a false dichotomy that's been created in our current discourse. One of the most frustrating aspects of this debate is how supporting traditional gay rights and defending women's spaces have been artificially positioned as contradictory stances. They're not. For over 20 years, I've actively supported gay rights. That's not just something I'm claiming now. It's documented in hundreds of blog posts, videos, and social media posts going back decades. I was literally on the front lines protesting when California tried to end gay marriage back in 2008. My track record speaks for itself. Supporting gay rights has always been about ensuring equal treatment and dignity for people regardless of who they love. It was never about erasing the concept of biological sex or demanding that everyone deny reality. I can, and do, fully support the rights of gay people while also believing that women deserve their own protected spaces. These positions are perfectly compatible and actually stem from the same principle: respect for human dignity and recognition of different experiences. What's happened is that activists have deliberately conflated these separate issues. They've created a false narrative that if you support women's sex-based rights, you must be anti-gay. Or if you question gender ideology, you must oppose all LGBT people. This is manipulative and untrue. You can believe that gay people deserve full equality and believe that biological sex is real and important. The attempt to frame these as opposing views is nothing more than a rhetorical trick to silence reasonable people who don't conform to every aspect of a rapidly shifting ideology. When we examine the statistical realities behind what we're witnessing, the numbers tell a compelling story. Dr. Jordan Peterson recently broke down a remarkable claim from a Disney executive who proudly announced having 2 children, one identifying as transgender and one as pansexual. Let's consider the mathematics. According to the best data we have, the probability of having a trans-identified child is roughly 1 in 3,000. Pansexuality is even rarer statistically. When you calculate the combined probability of having both in the same nuclear family, you're looking at odds of approximately 1 in 9 million. Now, contrast that with my own experience. In my family dynamic, I'm told that 4 out of 5 of my children now identify somewhere on this spectrum. Statistically speaking, this is virtually impossible as a natural occurrence. The math simply doesn't add up. What's more probable? That we're witnessing a purely organic expression of innate identities that just happen to defy statistical probability, or that we've created a cultural environment where identity has become something influenced by social contagion, parental suggestion, and ideological capture. This isn't about denying anyone's lived experience. It's about questioning whether these experiences are truly spontaneous or if they're being shaped by external forces. When something defies statistical probability to this degree, we have to ask what other factors might be at play. I believe many parents and children are caught in a feedback loop of affirmation and social reward for adopting certain identities. The rarer and more special the identity, the more attention and validation it receives in certain circles. We need to consider whether this creates incentives that shape how young people understand themselves. When we examine the statistical realities behind what we're witnessing, the numbers tell a compelling story. Dr. Jordan Peterson recently broke down a remarkable claim from a Disney executive who proudly announced having 2 children, one identifying as transgender and one as pansexual.
So, a while back, Disney executive mentioned on video, this is when Florida went after Disney, it was all when this was happening. She came out and said, I think she was head of domestic programming for Disney. She said, well, I have 2 children, 5 and 7. One is trans and the other is pansexual. And I just thought mathematically right away, it's like the chance you have a trans kid is 1 in 3,000. That's not a very high chance. And let's say the chance that you have a pansexual kid is the same, whatever pansexual means. I don't even know how to calculate those odds. But whatever that is rarer than trans because no one ever even heard about it until 5 years ago. So the joint probability that you have a trans kid and a pansexual kid is 1 in 9 million. The odds that you're a pathological narcissist sacrificing your own children to the glorification of your compassion is 8,999,999 to 1. So, like, do you have a trans kid and a pansexual kid, or are you a devouring mother? Well, you can look at the odds and decide for yourself.
Jesus.
Oh yeah, no kidding.
Now, contrast that with my own experience. In my family dynamic, I'm told that 4 out of 5 of my children now identify somewhere on this spectrum. Statistically speaking, this is virtually impossible as a natural occurrence. The math simply doesn't add up. What's more probable? That we're witnessing a purely organic expression of innate identities that just happen to defy statistical probability, or that we've created a cultural environment where identity has become something influenced by social contagion, parental suggestion, and ideological capture? This isn't about denying anyone's lived experience. It's about questioning whether these experiences are truly spontaneous or if they're being shaped by external forces. When something defies statistical probability to this degree, we have to ask what other factors might be at play. I believe many parents and children are caught in a feedback loop of affirmation and social reward for adopting certain identities. The rarer and more special the identity, the more attention and validation it receives in certain circles. We need to consider whether this creates incentives that shape how young people understand themselves. But let's move beyond theory and look at the concrete, real-world consequences when ideology overrides biology. These aren't hypothetical scenarios. They're happening right now, affecting real women and girls across the country. Consider what's happening in our prison systems. When biological males who identify as women are housed in female prisons, we've seen documented cases of sexual assault and rape. Women in these facilities, many of whom have already experienced trauma, now face new threats to their safety and dignity in spaces that were designed to protect them. In sports, the evidence is overwhelming. A UN study confirmed that approximately 900 medals have been won by transgender athletes competing in women's divisions. Each of those medals represents a biological female who lost her opportunity to stand on the podium after years of dedication and training. The consequences extend to education as well. Young women are losing athletic scholarships that would have provided college opportunities. They're being pushed off teams they've worked their entire lives to join. And when they speak up about fairness, they're often labeled as bigots and silenced. This isn't about denying anyone's humanity. It's about recognizing that policies have consequences, and those consequences are falling disproportionately on women and girls. When we ignore biological reality in favor of ideology, it's not the powerful who pay the price, it's the vulnerable. I didn't arrive here by accident. This position, standing for biological truth in an era where it's become controversial, wasn't something I sought out. But once you see reality clearly, you can't unsee it and you face a choice. Speak up or stay silent. I've chosen to speak regardless of the cost. And yes, there has been a cost. Friendships lost, family dynamics strained, public criticism and private pain. But I would rather lose everything standing for reality than gain the world living by a lie. To be absolutely clear, my stance isn't rooted in hatred. It's precisely the opposite. It comes from a place of profound love, love for truth, love for my children, and love for the women and girls whose rights and spaces are being eroded before our eyes. As St. Augustine wisely noted, right is right even if no one is doing it. Wrong is wrong even if everyone is doing it. The easiest path would be conformity, to nod along with ideology rather than stand firm with reality. But easy paths rarely lead to right destinations. The courage to face uncomfortable truths is what moves humanity forward, not comfortable lies that make us feel temporarily virtuous. So I'm inviting you, regardless of your current position on these issues, to consider something. What if defending biological reality isn't an act of hatred, but an act of genuine compassion? What if speaking honestly about these issues, however uncomfortable, is ultimately more loving than silence? This is Ryan Thompson for Disruptarian Radio. Thank you for listening. Until next time, remember that revolution starts with reality. Stay disruptive.
Can I continue?
Try to keep it professional.
I've already told you what I'm doing, and I'm making that very clear, and I'm not going to change.
Keep it professional.
I have not. I have only kept this professional. You are debating me, and you are violating your own rules. I'm here to talk as a parent. I've got 2 young boys. We live in Glendale, and when they come of age, I am deeply concerned about their educational prospects in this city. I'm also a taxpayer. I pay a lot of taxes in this city, many of which go to this district. And I'm deeply concerned about how that money is being spent, particularly, and I'm going to single out a person at the in the school district named Dr. Kelly King, who's sitting right here to my left. Dr. Kelly King makes over $250,000 a year. Every 4 years, we give her $1 million. We will be paying for her pension for, the duration of her life after she retires. And she's doing things that I completely disagree with, and I think many members of the community would also disagree with. Previous speakers have mentioned the number of Armenians who live in Glendale. How many Armenians would support what she does? Let me discuss what she's doing. In a recent video in 2017, she reflected Glendale Unified Policy when she stated, and I'm going to quote, "We have a lot of resistance from male coaches who are horrified at the thought of having a biological girl changing clothes in front of them." Which biological girls are changing clothes in front of coaches in Glendale Unified? That's a question I'm genuinely asking. She continued, "It's not a girl. It's not a girl. It's not a girl. You only have boys in the boys' locker room." She just said it was a biological girl.
May I just stop
I'm
for a
speaking.
moment?
No, you're not. No, I'm speaking.
I
This is
will-
interrupting my time.
Well, we
Can I
can
pause
pause
this,
the
please?
time. Can you pause the time for a minute? I only want to say that to refrain from personal attacks. So
She
please.
is a government official. She's a government employee. This is not a personal attack. I pay her salary with my tax dollars.
Again, please talk towards the policies that you
I'm
are
talking about-
against
and
and refrain from personal attacks, and your time will continue. Please go ahead.
In what way have I personally attacked Dr. King? She is acting within her official role as assistant superintendent at Glendale Unified. How is that a personal attack? I'm talking about tax dollars being used in a way that I disagree with. I'm going to continue.
Continue talking about the policy that you disagree with.
Dr. King quoted to say that biological girls were changing in front of male coaches. And then, so she knows it's a biological girl, and then proceeded to say it's not a girl 3 times. You know it's a girl. You know it's a girl. Or
Okay,
you know
so
it's a
she's
boy.
an
You know it's
employee
a
of
boy.
ours, and if you wouldn't mind telling us what policy you dislike.
There is why am I being interrupted for speaking about an official member, a superintendent at Glendale Unified, speaking in an official manner? You cannot interrupt me for that. You have no ability to do that. And furthermore, the rules stated you won't debate. You're debating me right now. Correct? I'm going to continue. In discussing permanent records, she states that she keeps permanent records for a handful of trans students literally next to her in her room. She does not indicate that person's gender identity for fear that the parent might find out. Why is she concealing this from parents? She says, we kind of go out on a limb, and we know that's controversial to some people. Which people? Which parents? Armenian parents? Christian parents? Are those the ones who are being excluded from knowledge on their own children and their own identity in Glendale's Unified School District? And you preach inclusive policies. We can talk about that policy. Yet she's excluding parents.
So
She's
again,
excluding parents. I'm going to continue.
And I might just ask for a pause and ask for information. Maybe I'm mistaken. Can you pause the time for a moment, Mr. Sahakyan? Thanks. So I wouldn't mind getting input in terms of, is this?
So my understanding, again, is that we are the arbiters of policy. That is our decision. And so our employees are operating based off of our direction and the direction up here at the dais. So it is appropriate to criticize the policy. It is appropriate to question that. It is not appropriate to personally attack and denigrate a specific employee. I do not believe that that is covered under the public comment.
I'm not personally attacking anybody.
Yes, you are, sir.
No, ma'am, I am not. I am not personally attacking her. I disagree with what she said in her role as assistant
So then you
superintendent.
disagree with the policy, so please continue with the disagreement of the policy.
I am disagreeing with her, and this is not, you are debating me right now. You said you would not debate me. Why are you debating me?
So you're using that particular thing inappropriately, the fact that we don't debate. So
I am not
please,
attacking her personally. This is under her official role as assistant superintendent at Glendale Unified. You are not allowing me to speak freely in a government entity about a government employee. I pay her taxes. I have every right to speak about her in particular within her role. I'm not talking about where she lives, what she looks like, anything like that. Nothing personal. This is purely professional, and this is purely governmental. Can I continue?
try to keep it professional.
I've already told you what I'm doing, and I'm making that very clear, and I'm not going to change.
Keep it professional.
I have not. I have only kept this professional. You are debating me, and you are violating your own rules.
So,
You are
Mr.
violating your own
Sahakyan,
rules.
go ahead and open the time again.
Thank you so much. Dr. Kelly King has worked with Gender Spectrum, an organization which you guys have actually paid money to in several schools. If that's not a conflict of interest, I don't know what is. She's worked with Gender Spectrum to produce gender support plans. In these gender support plans, she ranks parents whether on how affirming they are on a scale of 0 to 10. Who determines that? Based on what criteria? I'd love to know that policy. She says, if the parent's not affirming, the parent may not be involved in this document. That's the gender support plan. This may be a private conversation So let's talk personal now, because she is. This may be a private conversation between that trusted adult at the school. Is that adult trusted by the parent? Who is the trusted adult? Define trust, please. This may be a private conversation between that trusted adult at the school and the student about how we keep you safe at home, emotionally and physically. Who's personal? Who's professional? Personally, I'm being professional. What she has done and the policies none of you have spoken out against is a complete deviation from that sacred boundary between government and personal lives and privacy, especially of minors. And we're talking about sexuality, sexual identity, and you're not going to divulge that to parents intentionally? And again, she makes over $250,000 a year, while 43%, only 43% of Glendale Unified High Schoolers are proficient in math upon graduation. Only 65% are proficient in reading. And you pay that much money to institute those policies while you're failing, literally failing, to produce the adequate students for the 21st century. Thank you so much.
Jonathan Ferrer is an HR director for a charter school district located in the Bay Area just outside of San Francisco. Ferrer describes his position of HR director as a role that handles the school's LGBTQ and DEI protocols. Ferrer also tells us that he is put in charge of layoffs, that he facilitates LGBTQ gender wellness training, whatever that means.
I'm Director of Human Resources for a school district.
Entire district, wow.
Entire district.
And the district spans from Northern California to Washington, or?
Northern California and Washington. We have 4 schools in Washington, 3 schools in Washington now, and then we have 10 schools in the Bay Area.
So what does an HR director for a school district entail?
Dealing a lot with training, making sure our principals and our teachers are trained. I lead our DEI efforts in the district, so we have LGBTQIA plus gender wellness training on Thursdays, so I facilitated that.
Deal directly with students and teachers? Students and teachers,
yeah. Our undercover journalist met Jonathan Ferrer for a first date, and Ferrer proudly confessed to engaging in discriminatory hiring practices. The HR director admitted that when the school district is presented with 2 equally merited candidates, one white and one black person, that he would hire the black person entirely based upon their race. Quote, "We're going with the black person, no matter what."
So you also want a diverse staff because you get more federal funding?
I think federal and state
or state funding. So you guys want a diverse environment, which I completely understand. I value that as well. Does that mean at a certain point you just aren't looking for a certain type of person?
With the exception, I'll say what we do look for, dynamics. For example, if the English department is all male, right? All white male. Maybe we'll want to add a person of color, somewhere in the mix.
Well, certainly in that situation like you described, where it's all one type of person, and then you get presented with on equal merits, like a white person and a black person or whatever.
Yeah, we're going with the black person.
Yeah.
Majority of the teaching staff, even in California, are white females. And that's just how it goes. And so whenever there's a qualified candidate and they happen to identify differently or present differently, we're probably going with that person.
Right. No matter what. Really.
Yeah, no matter what. Yeah. Sorry to say that, but that's really how it goes down sometimes. Yeah.
That's what DEI is all about, right?
Yeah.